Hello everyone, episode 23, Road to Superbowl, your 2025 NFL preview for every single team in the league. And here we are today with the Pittsburg Steelers. And for this team to get my favorite number, it just slightly pisses me off because, well, they might get the torch passed from the Saints as one of the teams that are stuck in the ultimate purgatory and are trying to convince themselves and the fans that this year it's going to be different, that this year the story is going to actually be we are getting there, we are threat. And maybe, just maybe, if everything goes right and this oldest team in the in the NFL in a way is going to work, there are so many really narrow corners that they will have to go through and not crash like the train on the station for this to happen, that, well, for this to perhaps sacrifice your future or just keep trying the same thing over and over again, I am not a huge fan. But, maybe, just maybe for this season, they could actually make something interesting happen. Why? What is the state of this franchise? Where does it go from here? Let's talk about that. And where do we start? Okay, let's start with the offseason before we actually approach the draft, because it's one that, for the whole narrative of this video, it's kind of the important one. So obviously, Steelers are run by Mike Tomlin, never losing record, but also during the career of TJ Watt, not a single playoff win. That's ridiculous. This guy is over 30 and has been one of the best players in football in terms of defense for pretty much ever since he entered the league. He is freaking awesome. And, not having a single playoff win, even though that your coach does not have a losing season, it seems like you are actually in very, very low variance trajectory in terms of upside and downside. No matter who your QB is, whether it's Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett, doesn't kind of matter. And why this year should be anything different? Where is it going to change? I don't know. But despite my huge respect to Mike Tomlin, I felt like Steelers might have passed opportunities where it has been reported, perhaps not this offseason, but the previous one, that some teams were offering pretty hefty draft pick conversation to lure Mike Tomlin from the Steelers. And is it hard to get a better coach than Mike Tomlin is? Absolutely. But if you could get the horde of picks, if you could perhaps get a coach and a vision that this team actually could be bad, we don't care about win or lose record, not care, but it's we don't have to be 9-8. We can be 6-11, perhaps even 5-12, if it means that we actually have a chance for the future. That might have been it for the Steelers that needed to do it. Like this, I don't know if they can ever get out of this purgatory. And I kind of started to applaud them starting this offseason when they traded for DK Metcalf. And not because I necessarily thought this was some great value trade. I actually didn't. I liked it more from the Seahawks side of things. Though I love DK, freaking love DK Metcalf. And it sucks that he is no longer a Seahawk, but I like the trade from us. But why I was applauding the Steelers, it was this team is just so freaking stubborn in their ways that they continue to be the highest spenders on defense in terms of a proportion towards what they spend on offense. It has been a team for this franchise for at least 10 years. 60% of cap hit or even more goes towards defense. And if it was 2010, even 2015, that might have been a recipe for success. But the league is moving towards offense. The rules are moving towards offense. You are in a freaking division with Joe freaking Burrow and Lamar Jackson. So spending 60% or more cap hit on your defense, it's just not the way to win. It's just not a winning recipe. It's been proved so many times. And you are actually the proof of it. At the same time, part of the thing when I'm okay, I'm I have mad respect for Mike Tomlin, and I think he's a great defensive head coach. But at the same time, it's like, where was the last time that this defense was like legit scary? And what I mean by legit scary is, if you are paying the most money, you should get the best defense in football. And I don't think that has been the case for like at least 5 years. And I would even argue that in like last 3 years, their average defensive outlook is like from 8th to 10th best. And that's freaking disappointing. Like, even when you look at last year, like their defense was like about 8th best in the league based on several metrics. And I'm like, that's a freaking disappointment. But when I saw like Steelers, like Twitter, etc., like all the fingers pointed towards like the offense, the Russell Wilson, and you see, Russell Wilson, like that's this guy, he's going to protect him. Well, no, and yes, but I'm like, you got around 20th best offense from the Steelers last year. That should be freaking good enough if you are spending the least amount of money on that offense. Like, that's a good value for your bucks. But your defense was the one that like did not hold up their end of the bargain. At least in my eyes, that's actually the disappointment, not the offense. Like, is defense of the Steelers better than the offense? Hell yes. But it freaking should be when you spend so much money on it. So I was like, okay, like perhaps it could be the way, but it could only be the way if you are actually the best. And they have not been the best for a while, or the scary or anything. Like, the closest thing to super scary defense that we saw from, like say Legion of Boom, that you have Denver, perhaps Jacksonville for a couple of games. And it was like Browns in 2022, 2023, something like that. But like Steelers, yeah, like they are consistently good, sometimes really great, but have they ever been special in like last decade even? Like we saw Broncos winning a Super Bowl with like offense that was dreadful that year. Peyton Manning that just could not really throw that much. Like Brock Osweiler got them to the playoffs, for fuck's sake. So it's like, maybe it could happen, but you are failing that from your defensive side, and perhaps it's freaking impossible when it's actually in the division with Lamar and Joe. So, come back to DK Metcalf today. I'm like, okay, maybe they are trying to convert their resources towards offense. And then the whole offseason happened when it's like their first round pick, defense. They traded away George Pickens. And they prolonged TJ Watt to 3 more years of 44 millions or 41, something like that, making him the highest non-QB in the league, even over Myles Garrett. And do I not think TJ Watt deserves this money? No, I do think he deserves this money. Do I not think he's freaking Pittsburgh legend? I think he's absolute Pittsburgh legend. Do I not think that he is always going to put out his best? Hell no, I think he's going to always do that. But he had a down year. He's on the 30 side of things in the NFL. He does not have a playoff win. And you are making him the highest non-quarterback player when, like last year, I would say he was like top 15, top 20 edge even in the league. I would even argue that Alex Heisman had a better year than TJ Watt, even prior to injury. Like I had done my homework on when the injury happened to TJ Watt and like why he disappeared in the last month of the season. Why? And the answer is like, well, you kind of have to, because you went all in with Aaron Rodgers, with trade for Jalen Ramsey. Like, TJ Watt had leverage on you. Like, he was entering last year of his deal. You went kind of clearly all in on this year, not necessarily future planning. And then it's like, okay, so you kind of cannot trade me. You obviously don't want to lose me for free. So he had all the leverage. I'm not saying he like treated them poorly or like he used all of the leverage, but it was like they have been stuck in the corner. And it has a domino effect, because not only pay TJ Watt for 3 years, what is, if he's at his best, absolutely worthwhile money. But if he's what he was last year, it's freaking overpay. Like, no question there. But also, like, now Cam Hayward is sitting out the camp and not playing because he wants a new contract. And like, good for Cam Hayward, especially like from his side of things. He was like, well, I'm signing 2 years deal last off season, when it was like, okay, I understand this deal is not for who I was, it's for who I am. No, but when we consider TJ Watt, like the deal is pretty much of the idea of TJ Watt what he was in his prime, which was not what he was last year. But you signed Cam Hayward last year for what he was prior to that season. And he was like, okay, like fair, but if I am a Pro Bowler, if I am anything close to my prime, I'm going to come back and want more money. And Cam Hayward was freaking awesome. Like, to me, he was the best player on the defensive line last year. So, like, in my eyes, DJ was kind of the third best last year on this defensive line. He was still damn freaking good. Like, but I would say Alex had a better season and Cam had a better season. And now you are like, he's sitting the camp. You are kind of in the corner because you actually have to, like, in a way, have to pay him. But like, you didn't want to. Like, you would not be put into the situation if you just did not keep on like consisting that this is going to be our year. And if you are going to pay him, it's going to come from the future assets, whether it's like some void years on his deal or actually making this a longer contract than it needs to be, etc., etc. So that's not a good situation. And also, like, part of the problem with this is like you spent first round this year on Derek Harmon. It's a really nice prospect, and I have like no problem with that. But one of the biggest intrigues for him and for the whole organization was like, yeah, you get to spend and teach from Cam Hayward. Now the whole camp is over and there was no Cam to teach from, which is like, yeah, that kind of sucks for both Derek Harmon and for the Steelers. So, you know, you got yourself into the corner. Some players, perhaps you think they're taking advantage of it, but at the same time, like, can you really blame Cam Hayward after the season he had and after seeing TJ what he got paid, which clearly he got paid for him at his best, not for what he was last year? I can't. So, not a great situation. And like coming back towards like, yeah, DK Metcalf, one offensive solution, but then it's like, well, let's go with George Pickens, let's draft Derek Harmon, let's prolong like contracts with our veterans. So yeah, it did not really become like this overhaul of resources towards offense, which could have happened. Like this offseason could have started with DK Metcalf trade, and then you could have, and in my eyes for the future of this franchise, it would be the most healthy approach to actually trade TJ Watt. Nothing against TJ, but the haul you could get, you could translate towards the offense rather than paying him 44 millions or 41 millions for next 3 years. I think that would be smart usage of your resources, given where the league is at, when like you should be spending more on offense than you are on defense, unless you hit on several cheap young guys on offensive side. Like that's the meta. So I felt like there are definitely options on the table for moving TJ Watt. And last thing that I'm going to mention with this for now is like you do have Alex Highsmith and Nate Herbig. That's like, yeah, is it a downgrade towards what TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are, which is like close to top edge duo in the league? Yeah, it is a downgrade. Of course it is a downgrade. I'm not denying TJ Watt is a freaking great player. But in a way, you are prepared for that. I think Alex Highsmith is kind of a low-end one, and Herbig in a full workload, like as a pass rusher, he's been great as a rotational guy. You know, his run defense perhaps is not that great, but you can work around that if he's your two. So yeah, that's where like this offseason was kind of, yeah, it's still the Steelers. It's still thinking this is our year. And, you know, it really starts to remember me the Saints of last pretty much every time after Drew Brees retired, when it's like, yeah, we can thread the needle and we have future resources to spend on it. I'm like, you know, you see where Saints are. Like, to me, they are in like at least 2 years full or freaking rebuild. Steelers, they are obviously not there. They are still in that like honeymoon phase of this, where it's like the team still looks good. There's a chance, unlike like for, you know, Saints, when we talked about them last year, when like they borrowed from the future once again to be 26th best team in the league. Yeah, great job. Now the Steelers, like, there is a potential, but like so tiny margins that you are threatening. Now that was a little bit longer start to the video that we are used to. So let's get to the draft. And now, like, I will try to judge all of this as like as neutral as I can do in regards of I'm not happy that they are not like converting their assets towards offense necessarily. So like I'm going to try to do that. It still has some neck on the grades because I just don't think it's smart, but let's see it from their point of view. We start with Derek Harmon, and this is a great pick. In terms of value, I think it's absolutely proper. In terms of him learning from Cam Hayward and like keep the pipeline of like him next to Keanu Benton for next couple of years. Love it. Like the organization fit for him is great. We know the storyline about his mother passing the day he was drafted. I'm like, she's done her job. Like you should learn about like she was battling long-term sickness and like was there for Derek every time she could. She was doing a freaking amazing job, and it really like felt like, well, now I can really rest in peace, let the fucking sickness win, because Derek Harmon is with his new family that's going to take care of him. So like for all of this value, everything, like it all fits. I'm glad that Derek Harmon is a Steeler. I'm just sad that he didn't get to like more time with Cam Hayward in the camp. Then you do obviously have the second round pick, that is DK Metcalf, and then third round pick, Caleb Johnson. Like this a lot. Steelers want to run the ball. Aaron Rodgers even publicly said it, like, let's run the ball. They are establishing new young offensive line. He fits very well Arthur Smith's offensive system. So Caleb Johnson, super fine. The only thing that like stops this from A+ is like this was just appropriate value for Caleb Johnson. I don't think like he was necessarily like second round talent that you got here in the third. Now, I actually kind of think that about Jack Sawyer, perhaps not necessarily in the idea that like he has this ultimate upside of a player that like is going to be the game wrecker, but I truly believe that his combination with Nick Herbig is like nasty. Like Jack to me is going to be the presence for run defense, and Herbig the presence for pass rush, and like combined they could be actually a special player. Like both of these guys, high motor, like they are just good at different things, and as a rotational duo, like perhaps as an individual player they are not amazing player, but combined I actually believe the potential between them is to be an amazing player for the Steelers. So I really like this pick. I think it was tremendous value. I like the fit, etc. Now for the third round, Yahya Black, okay, rotational guy to stop the run, fine by me. Carson Brunner, not really sure about this pick, but nothing to hate. Will Howard, I think, is a nice try to take, but when I look at their third day 3, I have to question one decision, and that one decision is, why didn't you go for Shedeur Sanders? I know I'm not sitting here like saliving after his first preseason performance, which I think was good, nothing spectacular. I think it was really good, but nothing spectacular. But when you look at the timeline for the Steelers, like you clearly paid your best players, they are on defense, so you are in a cap hell in a way. And you need to thread the needle for a young QB. Or you could hope that you will get Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers of the world on like cheap 1-year deal and perhaps make it work this way. Good luck with that. And I think the first possibility is much more like intriguing, but also it's super hard to do because you will never allow yourself to be bad, so you can have a high pick. So now you have to hope for Kenny Pickett's of the world, like late first round picks. And I'm like, why the fuck don't you go for Shedeur then, who is like early second, late first this year's draft type of a QB with potential, and he was just falling into your lap. And like if you are worried about the nonsense, like are you? Like that's specialty of Mike Tomlin. Like he can like he can handle head cases if if Shedeur was not working. You have Aaron Rodgers over him, which like like is he the best mentor in the world? Not necessarily, but like it could be a good television, like Pat McAfee 1 week with Shedeur, second week with Aaron. Like it could have been a good TV, but I actually think like the madness part would like neutralize itself, and it would be beneficial for Shedeur to like sit 1 year behind Aaron Rodgers, and you could see in the next off season what are you going to do with this quarterback room? Do we give Shedder a chance? Do we sign a veteran? Is there someone falling into our lap within the draft? It would open up a lot of possibilities. I know Will Howard is like in the same mold like as the dart throw, but like there's at least 2-tier difference in terms of them as a prospects. Like I don't get it. Like you were clearly ready to make the dart throw and not take Shedder. It's like, why? I'm sorry, I don't get that. Like, you know, and this is not about like, I'm not on the Shedder bandwagon fan. Like, you know, like everybody wants to screw Shedder, etc. And he's going to be the next best thing after a bubble gum. No, but like this made so much sense, and that's what frustrates me with the Steelers, because to me, when they are planning for their defense, like their defense is almost figured out like for next 2 or 3 years, especially in terms of defensive line, but for quarterback situation, like their planning seems to be like half a year to half a year, and that's just not good. So overall, like a nice draft, really nice draft, some really nice values. I just wish they drafted each other for their future, you know, like for what it's worth. Like I kind of don't care. Like Steelers are kind of like, never been there. Like not necessarily following this division like super closely though. Like last year's NFL, like I've watched you know, like the documentary on HBO, Hard Knocks. I think it was Hard Knocks or part of the Hard Knocks, like it's in season, and it's like a great, obviously great division. And like I follow it because I'm a fan of football, but I'm not like emotionally invested. You know, like I'm obviously a huge fan of the Seahawks, and this year I'm, for example, emotionally invested in the Raiders because of Pete Carroll, etc., etc. But like I have no investment with Steelers. Like I had a couple last year with Russell Wilson, but as of right now, I couldn't care less in a way. Like it's, you know, it's on the same starting situation as like 25 or 30 other teams. So it's like, okay, I'm intrigued as a fan, but an analytic and etc. But I don't have emotional investment in this team. So yeah, that's just it. Now, what does this leave this team in terms of offense? Okay, let's start with Aaron Rodgers, who I think it's a good starter. I don't think he's not. I think he's not more than that, but I also don't think he's anything less than that. Which is like a lot of people out there actually make it out that Aaron Rodgers is like washed up and he's like super bad. I don't think so. Like I think for what it's worth, like Jets offense as a unit was kind of on par with their expectation last year. It was the Jets defense that heavily under-delivered. I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers in your organization, like bringing out Nathaniel Hackett, and you know, I still have my questions about like how much was he and was he not involved in Robert Saleh firing and all of his talks outside. Like he's not necessarily like the greatest presence for you, but as a quarterback on the field, you know, if you can stab his influence on the offensive play call, which is I think what's going to happen here with Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin in the room, like yeah, there will be some Aaron Rodgers things that he's going to want to implement, but I think it's going to be much more of Arthur Smith's offense than it's Aaron Rodgers, unlike it was with Jets. So I think he's a good player, good starter, you know, somewhere between like around top 20 in the league, like at that, you know, top the like 20th best guy. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Why is it B+, not something special? Because like I would definitely pay $30 million for Aaron Rodgers and pretty much for any quarterback in this area. If you know, like to me, that's the path to build, rather than even paying guys like Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence $50 million a year or $45 million a year. I would rather go for a tier below quarterback that cost me third of the cost. Like I was very public about this, but at the same time, like the influence that he has on you, it doesn't have to all go great. Also, he's 42, so the injuries and stuff, like that's what worries me slightly a bit more that it worried me last year with Russell Wilson. Who, to me, this is very similar type of signing, like a veteran QB past his prime, that, you know, you need to kind of not do things only his way, but you want his magic wound balls and hear special connections, reading what the coverage is. You want that to be part of the game. It's part of the equation, but not necessarily something that you want to do only, which like could be something that perhaps those guys would want to. So I think it's a very fine signing. I'm absolutely not against it. in terms of like, if we are trying to thread the needle, this was our best option, like him or Russell Wilson. I would say with DK, Russell would be probably slightly better fit. You can argue that Aaron is still slightly better QB. I wouldn't, but you know, I would not blame you. And especially like after last year, it seems like something broke between Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson, the fans. So like for that, it makes sense for them to go with Aaron Rodgers, totally. Now, towards this offensive line, that is going to be quite a key for this team. If they want to have the succession that they think they can, this is actually very, very key, because they've invested quite heavily in this offensive line in the last couple of years. For what it's worth, like this is their major investment in terms of offense. And last year we did not get to see it towards the greatest because Troy Fautanu was injured pretty much since week 2. But we saw Zach Frazier ascend towards already being very close to top 10 center in the league, and he played like that. I just like with young players, I usually need bigger sample sizes unless it's like Jared Veras, Brian Thomas, Jaden Daniels type of season. But like if you would make an argument he should be an important starter, I would not stop you. And I think this is going to be promotion that he's absolutely up for within the first couple of games, and I would not be surprised if he ascends to like top 3 to 5 centers in the league within this year. Like I think he was truly special on not the great circumstances. Next to him, Isaac Seumalo is still slightly better player, like not necessarily in terms of like how he played last year, but the sample size like, of him really putting out good football is out there. So do I think Zach Frazier and Isaac Seumalo is going to be lower on my my rankings? I don't, because like there might be definitely Isaac just downward degraded in a way into GOAT starter, and I definitely think that Zach Frazier could ascend to amazing. But for now, this is really nice duo. Let's hope Zach can continue to ascend and Isaac could just continue to be really good. Next, Mason McCormick. Is he poised to start? Yes, he is. Late round rookie that held his own last year. He was not like a super reliability. Can he develop? Hell yes. I think he has nice traits, and like for a rookie, this was a pretty solid guard performance, especially when the situation and circumstances around him was not special. Like Justin Fields and Russell Wilson are one of those guys that really hold on to the ball longer, so it puts more pressure on US offensive line, which like Aaron Rodgers, he could actually do quite the opposite. Like we know his quick releases, so if anything, I think he could help this young offensive line and could be very happy to go and be behind it. Just like with Jets, I think it worked, that the young offensive line really worked in front of him, and I think this one could do as well. Now with Troy Fautanu, I don't have any question that he's going to be back and he's going to be great. It's just like we've seen him play 55 snaps in NFL, so I cannot put any higher grade on him than I did last year. But I have no questions about him. I truly believe he is a special type of player. I raved about him, like Steelers getting him last year. I felt it was tremendous pick, and I think he's going to prove it this season. Who I'm not certain about is Broderick Jones. He's shifting from right to left tackle, which should be his more natural position, so let's hope that's there. But he pretty much has been the same player that he was in year 1 in the NFL, which is like concerning, because like he's a first round talent. Like in his second year we have not seen a leap, so the hope is we will. If not, that could be a discussion on what they will do with his 50-year option, etc. Though, like, is he necessarily a bad player? No, but yeah, borderline starter that you would, if he was 30, you would think about replacing him and drafting another guy. Given that he is still a young draft pick that you just got 2 years ago, there is obviously hope for development. But overall, like, this is solid offensive line in terms of floor, but the upside, it could be nasty. Like if Broderick Jones can figure it out, Isaac Seumalo can kind of stay the veteran presence here, Zach Frazier ascends to what I think he's going to, Mason McCormick improves, and Troy Fautanu, again, like similar to Zach Frazier, I do expect him to ascend quite quickly with my rankings. This could be easily top 10 offensive line and perhaps even slightly more. So very, very, very exciting. Now, in terms of depth, Calvin Anderson, Spencer Anderson, and that's kind of it. And even that is not really something to write home about. So you are counting on your rank pieces. It means you Usually you don't have too much of a depth because your depth just got promoted towards being starters with young guys that you drafted. So I'm okay with that. I wouldn't definitely mind to get one more player into the mix. Now, in terms of weapons, it just tells you what they want to do, right? It really does. It's going to be 12 and 13 personnel heavy team that's got Pat Fairmouth as your number one tight end. Next to him, Jonnu Smith. Like, did I not put Jonnu here? Oh, I'm sorry. Jonnu should be absolutely here. So Jonnu Smith, as I think I even promoted him to like an imported starter. Like within his role, I think he's slightly better than Pat, who is like he can do much more. Like he's more complete, but like I feel like these guys could play next to each other quite nicely. And then you have Darnell Washington kind of as a blocking specialist. So this is going to be your 12 to 13 personnel. You also have Connor Hayward, like as a fullback / tight end type of, a guy that you can use. So heavy on tight ends. And then you have DK Metcalf to be your alpha, which like he's kind of close to that. And definitely a guy that you need to respect. And even if you use him as only a decoy, for DK to use him as a decoy, it's definitely a situation in which like, okay, you don't want your free safety to not have eyes on DK Metcalf. So you're kind of forcing the defense to take kind of two guys to eliminate the threat of DK Metcalf 50-yard touchdowns. Because like he is a freaking speed threat, despite his size. Like he's not necessarily the biggest contested catch winner, but in terms of speed, yeah, good freaking like stopping DK. And use him as a decoy and like run the ball. You brought Robert Woods as kind of guy that should help with blocking. There is something with Calvin Austin that like he is a nice gadget player, but he's not the two. Like at some teams he would not be a free. Like he's kind of really good for with some potential, but nothing special there. And you also have Roman Wilson, who despite reasonably high drafting and like I was really high on this guy. Year one, he kind of didn't even get on the field. So, right now they have like Scotty Miller ahead of him on the depth chart. Ben Skowronek is still there. Like, like Roman Wilson, what's going on? You should absolutely figure this one out. But like the offense tells you everything you need to know. Like they have Jalen Warren and Caleb Johnson. They are really nice complementary backs to each other. I expect a big season from Caleb Johnson actually. I think he's going to actually be their lead runner. Though I think as of right now Jalen Warren is slightly better player, but like, I just don't have the sample size for Caleb obviously. And they will just run the ball. 12, 13 personnel, DK as a decoy, and threat of big plays with him being the one legit receiver that you need to worry about and hope that Calvin Austin or Roman Wilson could like complement him in some ways or times. But like, this is it. They will want to limit possessions, run the ball, burn it to the ground, count on their offensive line to yank and get better, count on the tight ends, count on Aaron Rodgers, and hopeful chemistry with DK Metcalf. And that's the game plan. And with Arthur Smith, I think he can call very good running game. Is it necessarily the most exciting thing to watch for a lot of guys? No, but Jonnu Smith really fits nicely into that. I think he is actually like their number 2 threat behind DK Metcalf in terms of passing. And it could be effective, and especially if you are still the team that pays the most for your defense. I would definitely like want my offense to be exactly like that. Let's just kind of not lose us the game, keep the defense fresh, and keep the defense dominating. And it's defense's job to put us into advantageous positions and to kind of win us the game. Our job is to not lose it. And this is actually good offense if you don't want to lose the games. Like, they can score 17 points, 20 points, and it's on your defense to, show that they can be number 1 and allow 14. That's kind of the game plan here. Mason Rudolph as a backup is kind of, okay, we know what he is. He's worked here. Fine backup. Nothing special, but fine. So that's the offense for the Steelers. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, we already talked about it. Like, this has every marking of being the best defensive line in football. You spend so much money on it. You have great players. And like right now, I feel like you are a top 3 defensive line. But given the resources, you would actually like this to be number 1 defensive line. what are you missing from that? Slightly better year from TJ Watt, health for Alex Highsmith, leap from Keanu Benton, everything in the realm of possibilities, and Cam Hayward staying what he was last year. Absolutely possible. Like, I absolutely don't have any bad words about these players as like super qualities. Like, this is superb. The question is, if you would lose TJ Watt for future resources, you would put Herbig in. Like, how much are you losing? And in context of the future, does it matter that much? Because is he a guy that's going to make you from 9-8 to Super Bowl contention? I don't think so anymore. But like, as players, this is superbly constructed room. It's deep room, as Steelers tend to do. Like I said, Nick Herbig, like pass rushing rate of 91.5. Like, he was a menace out there. You have Montravius Adams, there's Derek Harmon, Jack Sawyer. Like, they have superb depth. Logan Lee is there. Then Marvin Leal, Yahel Black, obviously. Like, they're kind of 10 deep that you, Daniel Aquala, like 10 deep that you can like trust in terms of rotational role, and you have super nice high-end talent. And like, if Derek Harmon hits, as a lot of people believe he does, Keanu Benton improves, Nick Herbig like continues to do and be a menace, Jack Sawyer is kind of your rotational first down player. Like, they could be 7 deep that are just freaking legit. So that's your path to be scary as hell defensive line, which is like not even like it would not be the best. Like, it would be the best defensive line in football, but that would not be the title. The title would be, this is freaking scary to play against them. Like, it's not like we are facing the best, like we are facing the demons, the absolute freaking monsters. There's the path, and that's kind of the path to victory. Like, you need to win through this defensive line. Now, in terms of linebackers, I really like Peyton Wilson in his year one, though. Like, he got limited workload. Like, him and Elandon Roberts, they were like kind of exchanging for each other, and I think like within their roles they were absolutely perfect. Hence why like my grades for them might seem a little bit inflated, because I do judge them based on the types that they are on the field. Perhaps should I encounter more of the fact that like, okay, they are trying to shield their weakness, but then it's like, how do you then do this with Hassan Reddick, who's kind of a pass rush specialist? It's kind of hard. So I'm kind of okay with my ratings, but acknowledging that Peyton Wilson as a free down linebacker is definitely not proven as a good starter, and he probably will need to prove it this year next to Patrick Queen, who's been announced as like a top 100 player in the NFL. Good for him. I would disagree. To me, he is just your average number one starting linebacker. Like, he is an athletic freak, but in terms of I would say football IQ, really like reading the game well, I don't think that's him. Like, he has special athletic traits. He guesses a lot of times. He guesses right, and he can make splash and great plays. Good for him. But is he the brain of your defense? Is he a guy that reads coverages, can move within the layers of the passing offense? I think he is below average in that. So overall, he's an average number one linebacker that's like more not well-rounded, but like more really good at one place and just kind of slightly bad in the other. Next to him, Peyton Wilson, you kind of hope that he can be all of it. And they are nicely complementary to each other, because Peyton Wilson showed a specific skill set in coverage, and he was really special there. So they work with each other very well. You also have Cole Holcomb there, perhaps in a rotational role, perhaps for some free linebacker packages, and as a really just nice backup if anybody gets injured. But I do believe Peyton Wilson in his second year is going to get close to full workload, and we will see if my good status holds, or if we might even need to upgrade it. But not the room that you should necessarily be worried. But given the national praise of Patrick Queen, you would think this is a room that I'm excited about, especially when I'm probably higher on Peyton Wilson than other. Well, but I'm lower on Patrick Queen than others. So I think it's a good room, but nothing special. Now, the secondary, which is like one thing, I have it before Minka trade. Sorry for that. I'm sorry that I did not update the graphics. I'm sure I did. I just probably put a bad presentation here, so sorry for that. We will adjust on the get-go. I think I can handle it. Now, with this secondary, like for years, it was like, well, we have this special D-line, we force-feed it, like the talents, and we kind of ignore the secondary, which was like, okay, not working. Now they started to address it a little bit more. Joey Porter 2 years ago, big draft pick, Darius Slade this offseason, and obviously Minka Fitzpatrick like 4 years ago they traded for him from the Dolphins, and now they are sending him back for Jalen Ramsey. I like this trade for the Steelers in terms of players. Like I feel like Jalen exchanging to Minka, that would be kind of a push, though I probably like the fit of Jalen Ramsey here slightly more than Minka, with his, kind of like liking performance, especially in terms of like game-changing plays for last 2 years. But getting Jonnu Smith on top of that for Arthur Smith offense, equally loves the guy, and like he's definitely a player that absolutely helps this offense to like be better. That they straight up won that trade. There is rumors why they wanted to force Jalen Ramsey so much out, like he wanted out. So, could it be win-win trade for like Minka coming back home, air kind of clean in Miami, whilst in Pittsburgh you are getting 2 great players? Yeah, it could end up win-win. But in terms of just pure value, just looking at players and their qualities on the field, it's a no-brainer to me that Steelers won this trade. What does it mean? For their secondary is Deshaun Elliott and suddenly Juan Thornhill are your starters. And, Thornhill as a backup, that would be special. Now as a starter next to Deshaun Elliott, there are some questions for it. But I think for, like, how do we talk about safeties? It's like, unless you really have that game changer, like your Jesse Bates, like Xavier McKinney last year, you can absolutely get by with just good or solid players there and not feel super vulnerable there. Like to me, it's very similar to like linebackers. Like, yeah, if you can get that game-changing player, that's nice, and you should absolutely go for that. But then it's like huge mid part when it's like being just good enough is good enough, and then it's like you just don't want to be the bottom 3 when it's like actively hurting your team. So, and I think Deshaun Elliott and Juan Thornhill are absolutely in that mid part when it's like they are good players, solid guys. Like, is there potential for anything more exciting, especially in their age? No. You hope that they don't drop off, but you don't necessarily should absolutely expect that. Perhaps with Thornhill there is a little bit more chance of that, but they should be absolutely fine for this year. The question is, with their age, like the injuries, will they occur? In which case you kind of don't have too much there. Like Sebastian Castro was a guy that I liked in this draft and he fell to undrafted, but they were able to snatch him up. So I actually would say like he's their third best option towards the safety. But here comes Jalen Ramsey on the spot, who clearly they count on him as a nickel / slot. But in a pinch, I think he could play safety, which is like a trajectory that a lot of people are projecting for him, like at this part of his career, which like eventually, yes, but right now, I think he's one of the best slots out there. Like he's physical, he still reads the game well, he's still damn good, and you want him next to the ball. So I think that's a really nice position for him. So, but as a backup plan, if something would happen to Deshaun Elliott or Juan Thornhill, it's nice to have Jalen Ramsey there. So, even in that, I feel like you get more flexibility with Minka straight. And what does Jalen Ramsey mean for you as for your corner room? Like he overcomes Beanie Bishop as your starting slot, who I think for what it's worth, he had a nice season, but like, is he a game changer? Is he potentially like a great player? No, he's kind of your starter and like you can get by. And like there is some potential. I liked him, but I wouldn't say that the potential is tremendous. And you are replacing him in the starting lineup with like a guy that's like 40 years above him. It's Jalen freaking Ramsey. Like I think he's still damn good, and this is a huge upgrade for the secondary. For this position, like obviously you lost at the safety, but I think overall you've upgraded the room quite nicely. And it also puts Joey Porter and Darius Slade, which like they were poised to be your starting outside corners, but for Joey Porter to have the opportunity to not only like suck great amount of knowledge from Darius Slay, which like why I really like the Darius Slay signing. For 10 million, I think it's appropriate value. Definitely good outside corner. Like obviously the edge is a factor here, but he was still good last year. But now you can also Jalen Ramsey, like can he be an outside corner still? Yeah, I think so. Like, is it necessarily the best use of his resources? No, but in a pinch he can do. But he also can be here to mentor Joe Porter, who after a great first year he had kind of fall to a nerve in the second season, where like the good starter just kind of barely hang on it for me, because like he was not good in last year. Like ridiculous amount of penalties, only one interception, not great in coverage. It was not good. But now you have your starting three in Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, and Joey Porter, and Joey to learn from these two guys. That's incredible. Like again, it's solution for 1 year. And with the age of the guys, like there is bigger chances of injuries, of course. And the long-term plan is not necessarily clear, but we are talking about 2025, and for that, like there are needles to be tread for this secondary to actually be top 10 in the league, I dare to say. Even when your safeties are kind of okay, but if Slay is what he was for the Eagles, especially in the playoffs, if Joey Porter like takes a leap from not from year 2 but from year 1, which like when he was really good, and Jalen Ramsey is kind of what he's been for the Dolphins last year, where I really feel like he was still at worst top 15 corner in the league. Now we're talking about really nice secondary. So add to this towards the to the pass rush, towards the defensive line, solid group of linebackers. Look, this is great defense, but the question is, can it be special defense? Because that's what this team needs. They need for their highest paid defense to be special. They have potential, but to me they have not been special last 3-5 years. And they have not been the game breakers, absolute monsters, probably like since I remember this iteration of the Steelers defense. Now, where does this leave them in terms of backups? For secondary, I don't necessarily see too much. Like Sebastian Castro, Corey Trice maybe, Miles Kilbrew. You have 4 older guys and not too much depth. It scares me. In terms of linebackers, we already talked about Cole Holcomb. That does not scare me at all. But like, compare their, I would say, lack of backups for the secondary, and they are 10 deep in terms of defensive line. So they clearly priced themselves on to be the defensive line machinery, to just keep it on rolling, and like nothing bad about that, but some other spots on the roster would need resources too. Now, in terms of their schedule, surprise, I do predict them to finish 9-8. Reason for it is like their schedule is actually quite easy to start. To me, love story continues, and Jono Smith is back. Arthur Smith, this is going to be it. And like Jets, Seahawks, Patriots, Vikings, Browns, 3 games at home, bye week through it. This should be a damn good start for the Steelers. Though the camp stories are the offense is really not working, but let's hope it's just because they are playing against this defense and they just can be, slightly below average, and this defense could be special. Yeah, we are talking about 4-1 start, and I would not be shocked. Then, O-line to be tested. Can Troy Fatano, can Miles Frazier, Mason McCormick, or Spencer Anderson, and Broderick Jones really step it up? Now we're talking about Chargers pass rush, Packers pass rush, Bengals and Trey Hendrickson. Like, I would not count the whole pass rush. It's just Trey. Colts have nice D-line. Bears are starting to assemble something. Like, it's not special units, but every single week you are having a formidable opponent, and you need to protect your Aaron Rodgers with his age, because like his mobility, it's not special at any longer. Perhaps 1 year more removed from the injury, it could get better, but he's 42, and it shows. I think they will go 3-3 in this part of the season. It's like those teams seem to be on similar levels. Some are slightly better, some I would say are slightly worse, but I think 3-3. And this team really could be 7-4, and everybody is feeling real nice, and this might be it, but the schedule was not super hard up to this point. It gets much harder after that because you have to play Ravens twice, you have to play Bills, you have to play Lions, you have Dolphins and Browns in there. That should be your 2 wins, but I just don't think Aaron Rodgers is on the level of Lamar or Josh or even Jared Goff right now. And, we've seen it time and time again, like when push comes to shove for the Steelers and the back ends of the season, it doesn't matter how good the start was. And that's like one of my other frustrations and something that perhaps could be better this year. It's like, don't run down TJ Watt in October. Like, he's 30. Like, let's just play him 25 snaps of the game. Like, let's really save him for October because for the last 3 years, last year it was partially because of an injury, but even prior to that, like December, January, TJ Watt, it was just not good. No, it was just good. It was not great. It was not elite, and you need him to be elite in this part of the year. Overall, I think they would finish 2-4, 9-8. Can they be a 7 seed? Yes. Can they find one more win to just kind of ensure to be a wild card? Though we saw with Seahawks that even 10-7 does not have to be enough. Yeah, absolutely. And like, there is an avenue for this team to be a sneaky contender if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, if offensive lines make huge leaps, if the run game and you can stay on schedule, you are not catching up. Like, this team would have super hard time if like they are not starting with possession, they concede touchdown, they go 3 and out, concede touchdown. For a lot of teams, they don't have to worry about this situation like we've seen it with Detroit. Just keep on playing our games and we will be fine. With Steelers, you kind of don't have a way out of this. Like, you are not built to come back from deficit. So the defense need to really push it up to the next level. Defensive line has absolute potential for that. Again, a lot of guys need to stay healthy. You need to figure out situation with Cam Hayward, Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay needs to be healthy and kind of back to their last year self, because not only with older guys you risk injuries, but you also risk a decline. And then, yes, like it might be a team that you don't want to face, but even if that's the case, at any point in the playoffs, Aaron Rodgers versus Lamar, Joe, Josh, Patrick, even CJ Stroud, would you favor him against it? No. So it cannot be about quarterback showdown. It has to be our defense is backshit scary and our offense is good enough. Can it be that? I think so. Would I borrow from my future assets for it? Would I not try to actually reload for it? Hell no. I think they are digging themselves into the hole, and the only way out is to win a Super Bowl. And this seems like the year that it's the most possible if I take a look at 5 years prior to this or kind of 3 years after, because there is not a clear game plan for next season. Well, this was your Steelers. Let me know if I was like too much in terms of negativity or even in terms of positivity. I don't know, like this is a team that I wouldn't build it like them. I do understand their reasons, but to me they are just digging a hole that is going to be super, super hard to get out of. And in terms of product on the field, it's going to be better than what I would like do with this roster, for sure. In terms of future of this team, I think my future would be my approach would be much, much better. And like I'm all for sacrificing a future if it means like I'm winning the ring. Like that's what matters. But if I am adding like 0.5% chances more towards my chance to adding a ring and sacrifice the future for it, hell no, I freaking hate that. So thank you very much for listening. If you're still here, leave a like, leave a subscribe, leave a comment, and see you with the next one. Bye bye.